There seems to be a growing trend lately where the commoner are glorifying the working class, specifically those who are more ambitious, who speak up. They feed this delusion that these people have some sort of great wisdom, which is not the case. They only do so because they can relate to them. Personally, professionally, my efforts, for example, with whistleblowing, which is not something that I sought out to do ever in life. It's just these things evolved, they snowballed. Began with one little thing and it just snowballed. I've shown I just need some help to keep warm and pay the couple of bills I do have, and food and supplies and stuff is kind of on the bottom of my list right now. Right now it's minus 27 where I am. It's very humid. That people should really pay attention to, because it's not so much about me, it's about you.
Do you get it now?
And there's all behind the scene crap that no one knows about.
See,
I need to get the hell out of here.
it's called self-preservation. You're done.
Especially something like this. Something along these lines.
Well,
Excellent.
Because they all fucking planned it.
Hello, it's January 2026. Now I'm going to be talking about something that I really don't want to be talking about. And I'm tired of talking about it. And there have been many other people talking about it as well. But it hasn't gone away, in more ways than one. And this topic seems to kind of flare up every so often, on top of people continuing to talk about it, saying never forget, which is a problem in itself. And this has to deal with the events that began in 2020. Now, before I start, I'm not stating or implying anything for or against. I'm maintaining a neutral position here. And for anyone who's been following me for any period of time knows what my position has been about this. That's not what this video is about. I'm maintaining a neutral position. Nor am I addressing anything about the foundation of what began in 2020 or anything else. Now, with that said, one of the main reasons why this kind of flares up is when we hear, for example, about these court cases which appear to have wrapped up with these so-called heroes, fake heroes of the so-called convoy of freedom. And there has been, I guess, some recent development, and people are so excited about it. Now, I was going to say one thing here at this point. What I find interesting is when one of the commoners who are guilty walk free or with minimal repercussions of their actions, they're happy, they're excited. And I've highlighted, for example, how this really parallels a story referencing Christian doctrine of the story of Barbarus, and how the people chose Barbarus, who took people from life and had this extensive criminal record, over someone who has the characteristics of someone righteous. That was the people, not the governing bodies, nor was it the Pharisees or anything else. It was the people that made that choice in the end. But people are so excited when one of their own, who they deem one of their own, especially one of their own who has a little more ambition, who decides to kind of stand out of the crowd a little bit, pretty much get away with lots. However, when it comes to someone that's not in their league, for example, when the elites do something, they get all huffy and puffy about, oh, look at, they got off. It's a double standard. And it's understandable why, because they see their own as part of their own tribe, for example, the commoner tribe, and they're very quick to ridicule someone that's not in their tribe. And you have people in between both, for example, who they also ridicule, mock, and whatever. So I'd mention that observation. Going back to the point here. So the events that began in 2020 and things that were being imposed at that time and onward for those several years, I had, and I've proven, clearly stated in 2020, 2021, and even in 2022 when it would end, and it did. Not down to the hour, not down to the day, but reasonably that you can say, yeah. Now when I say predict, I'm not saying that I have a crystal ball. A prediction can be, well, let me just stop here for a sec. People associate prediction with, for example, a prophecy. And a prophecy being something like not knowing something, what's going to happen, but predicting that will happen, and then it happens, type of thing. Usually divinely inspired. All a prophecy is someone saying, here's the agenda, here's a pattern, here's a cycle, and that's it. Now I digress. So I clearly stated during those times when all that was being imposed would end, and it did. Now I know there have been individuals that were all with this so-called convoy of freedom who loosely mentioned what I just said and completely dismissed it very quickly, and that's just their own delusion. Here's the thing with all that, and I've also stated how that, as a descriptive, a prediction anyone can make when you look at patterns and cycles and so forth. Whatever was being imposed or began in 2020, people would have to assume that that would last forever, from there on forever. Now, where would people come up with such an idea other than through fear-mongering by others who create these echo chambers, feeding the addiction of fear and anger? Now, if it was something that was to have lasted forever, then it would have. But nothing lasts forever, good or bad, on any topic. Now, with that foundation set here, these people who think that this so-called convoy of freedom and these fake heroes had a role in stopping something would have to assume that whatever's being imposed was to last forever, and they stopped that forever part. Whatever was being imposed had a lifespan. It was going to only last for so long. Nor do we see something that initially is imposed last. It may set the stage for other things to happen, and we see this, for example, during the two towers that fell in the early 2000s. I'm trying to wordcraft here for a reason. That event involved some aircraft. I'm not even going to get into all the discrepancies and anomalies with that, but anyway. But what we've seen was initially there was things being imposed, things being done. Didn't last forever, but it did set the stage for other things that still continue. This is going to be key here for a moment. Now, I've stated that aside from my saying when it would end, long before this so-called convoy and these fake heroes, the events that took place were maybe influenced by governing bodies and so forth, but it was really corporations and businesses that made the ultimate choice, and individuals. And I've stated many times, there are always choices. Just because someone does not like the alternatives does not mean there were or are no choices. And what we see, for example, today is that these things that were being imposed are now requirements still in certain parts of society. And we also see, for example, how there are individuals who still carry on with things that were imposed. You can see them, for example, driving alone on a highway, still adhering to those things that were being imposed, began in 2020. Just take a moment to try to paint that picture. Now, I'm not stating or implying what these people are doing is good, bad, or anything. I'm just stating this is an observation. So right there you can say, through observation, that this so-called convoy did not stop anything. And that initial, as a more famous descriptive, shock and awe lived through its little lifespan and fizzled away, and now there's those residuals that still exist. So that right there has to tell you something. They didn't stop anything. And it's very interesting when talking to different people who support that nonsense and these fake heroes, how everyone has their own interpretation on what it was about, what it accomplished, and everything else, which is fine. People believe all sorts of nonsense all the time on any topic. So just observing that alone, where did those efforts by these people who got themselves into legal trouble? I'm going to also interject here real quick that there's only a handful of people who got themselves into serious legal trouble. Think about all the other people who participated, who went home and carried on, and other people who claim to be the organizers of these protests of rubber and everything else. Their lives are okay, and in fact they're prospering from it, writing books, doing interviews, and everything else. Really, I think the key here is how the commoner, seeing these handful of people as part of their tribe, one of them, created this false narrative about the whole thing, even to this day, calling them heroes, which is a disgrace to real heroes on any topic to any degree. And that's really what I want to highlight, how people Well, look within their own tribe. And within the commoner tribe, you had the people supporting the whole convoy, which were really a bunch of truck drivers who were unemployed, who more or less, as a descriptor behind closed doors, were told, hey, you're going to get paid to come out, whatever comes in donations and everything else. Well, that kind of got messed up. They didn't get paid, but whatever. And really the whole thing at the end of the day was just a big, huge psyop. And now we can start to see really the direction of that psyop was to once again vilify Canada. And we see Canada being torn apart, literally torn apart. And it's sad. It's very sad. What I find interesting is how people are talking about wanting to go back into a point in time, say the 1990s. They want to go back to that era because life was different, better, perhaps, depending on how you want to look at it. But here's the thing. It's not that people want to go back to an era. People want to go back to the time of their own innocence and simplicity of life. It's not necessarily going back to a specific time, like an era like the 1990s or whatever. This is what people are wanting to go back to. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. That's reality. And this is what people are really fighting for. That perception of comfort and luxuries and familiarity is what people are now longing for, because everything is just complete chaos. It's a mess. It's a rat's nest. And all people have to do is survive. That's it. There's no stopping what, as a descriptor, the ruling class wants to play out. You just have to survive it. And that's all I had to say about that. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. The life-saving surgery that I had in June of 2022 has nothing to do with the complications that I've been dealing with since the surgery. Have nothing to do with it because, again, I've never taken it. The complications stem from the serious damage done to me internally. I want to share a few pieces of evidence to show that I'm being very truthful. I was very clear. You can hear in the audios that I said that I'm not the surgeon, just going to go to the next person on the list. I'm not.
Are you signing yourself out?
I don't. I want the surgery, so I just. If I'm not getting the surgery, I'm not staying. Accept that. What people are afraid of is the time before a new equilibrium is established. And I've said this for the past 10 years on other topics. That's what people are afraid of. And this is why people are frantically trying to find hope and trying to save whatever it is now that they think is worth saving. But that's what people are scared of. So we're about halfway through all this. So let's just say there's another year and a half. And then, poof. So if I've been right, which apparently appears that I have been, and people have been saying all this time, then we only have another year and a half of this. Whether it be anger or fear or whatever. And a lot of people are not pacing themselves. And what I've been talking about in videos is this being a war of attrition, which means you have to endure. You have to endure for the long haul. And we're about halfway through, meaning there's about another year and a half to endure all this. And that's where real hope people support these people because these people pitch a script that they are victims of law and justice while being alleged leaders, ignoring the fact that these people claim to be leaders as well, yet they don't have legal matters to deal with and live happy lives. The difference between the two groups are the first group did break laws and the second group didn't. The first group are acting like real guilty people trying to avoid punishment. Basic psychology shows that people project goodness into others they don't know, especially when there's something wanted or needed. People see those who are more ambitious, who take the extra step, as greater than them, despite their being able to relate to them. And this is a sign of a successful marketing campaign. If these supporters were able to meet these people that they support, their illusion would be shattered. People I know some of these people that are being supported, and they all say the same, that these people are a-holes and fraudsters. Just remember, I was one man against many, fighting a losing battle, but I still fought to the end.
That means press on. That means endure. That means God cannot fail, and you're not going to give up. That's not an option for a child of God. This means you are going to be remembered. Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people say to me, when is it going to get easier? When you die.